Hi, in this video I'm gonna give you a quick walkthrough of a trailer track that I made. And I made the track for a challenge hosted by a company called Evenant. And the challenge was to create a short trailer type track using only samples from a free sample pack. And the free sample pack was provided by a company called BYTHESUN. And this is the sample pack right here. We're just gonna listen through the track once, and then I'm gonna go through the different elements that I used and what kind of processing I did to them. So maybe let's first quickly look at the sample pack. As you can see here, these are the types of sound effects it actually contains. So your typical trailer sound effects are in there. So a few booms, downers, hits, risers, whooshes, and whoosh hits. So for a lot of these samples, it was enough for me to just drop them in the track, and I didn't really have to do any processing to those. But some stuff was kind of not in the sample pack. You know, your typical Braams or ping sounds that you will often hear in trailer tracks. So I kind of had to make those out of these samples here. So maybe let's go for the simple stuff first. So the booms were really straightforward, just dropped in, no processing on this one. Pretty much the same boom throughout the entire track. I just used a different one at the end, but no processing at all to these. The same goes for the downers. I didn't really have a lot processing on them. I just used an EQ to cut the highs, and on this last one I used some EQ modulation. But nothing else here. As for the hits, which, well, make up the main part of the track, I used a lot of different hits that they had in the pack and sort of mixed and matched them. So I used the pre-boosh of some hits and the tail and the transient of others, and just layered a lot of them. And the main hit that I used during the climax section here, that's just this hit 3. I just cut the tail for a lot of these and used the tail of a different hit that I layered with it to make certain accentuations in the track. And up here I just created a short loop with that hit where I pitched the samples differently, just to sort of avoid the machine gun effect a bit, at least. But yeah, for short sound design tracks, the machine gun effect is not too bad. Then the risers didn't really need a lot of processing as well. I have some edits here and there where I cut up the riser to create a stutter effect. But other than that, there is not that much stuff going on. I just EQ'd them because I layered a lot of those. I used to EQ them, and also to create the intensity over time, I used some EQ modulation. But I didn't really change the samples too much. So for the other elements, it gets a bit more interesting. The click sound here, it's sort of supposed to imitate a clock, a ticking clock. I used one of the hits that they had in the pack. I used this one. I just pitched it up a lot and EQ'd it a lot, added auto pen to pen it left right. And I used two versions of this. One is pitched a bit lower than the other one. So I get the clock ticking effect. And this is the same throughout the track, just with increased tempo. So no need for clock recordings necessarily. And then I feel like the more interesting part is this stuff up here, because the sample pack didn't contain any Braams sounds or any ping sounds, so I kind of had to create my own waveforms and use those to create my own Braams. So I used the same method on all of them. So I actually just used one of the risers, the riser 1 in this case, and just looped a really short section of it. And we can actually, let's use this one. As you can see, by this you sort of create your own waveform, and from then on you just would treat it like, you know, any waveform that you have in a synthesizer, and just put effects on it until it sounds the way you want it to. So for this one in the intro, I wanted you know, a really dull sound with no high frequencies, and that's why I cut a lot of the frequencies out at this point at the beginning already, and then just used saturation and compression, a lot of it actually, to get the sound that I wanted. And I used the same technique for all of the pings and Braam sounds up here, and bends, or whatever you want to call it. So again, just this tiny section here is looping really fast, and then just a lot of the same processing, to be honest, just distortion, compression, distortion, distortion, in this case some reverb, and some more EQing, and compressor at the end. The same was used for this ping sound. Just I used the envelope inside of sampler to create the shape for the ping. So nothing that special. And at the end I've used just copies of the other ones that I slightly changed to get a more aggressive sound. I think at the end I have the more aggressive ones. I think this one is the most aggressive, and I actually used a technique that I use for bass sounds as well. Actually boost the low end and push it into distortion. So in case you're wondering how this sounds without all the effects. kind of boring, but with a lot of distortion and EQ modulation and compression, you can get more interesting sounds really easily. And I also use the same technique to create this sort of pulsing sound down here. Again, I'm boosting the low end of it, but this is, in this case, it's more to create the movement that I needed for the pulse. The envelope here is, I think, probably very similar to the ping up here. And then it's pretty much, you know, a lot of the same processing again, just with different EQ settings, depending on what kind of frequencies I want to get through. And this smaller one here is actually not really a pulse, it's more a riser. But that's just the same stuff is up here, just with a pitch envelope, I guess. Yes. Yeah, it helps to increase the intensity a bit. And on the master, I didn't really do a lot. Just set everything below 200 hertz to mono, you know, a bit of compression and then a bit of limiting. And that's pretty much it.